So this is my 7.2 assignment. So the events I chose were the Montgomery bus boycott, the formation of the Black Panthers, and the March on Washington. So the Montgomery bus boycott occurred after a black woman by the name of Rosa Parks, you may have heard of her before, had been pushed over the ledge and she had had enough. Because she was a black woman living in the year 1955, that was when segregation was going on. If she was told to do something like get up from her chair because a white person wanted that chair, she was expected to do so. So on December 1st, 1955, on a public bus for all colors, Rosa Parks was traveling home from work. Rosa was asked to give up her spot for a white person who was thought by society to have priority over Parks because Rosa Parks was African American and not white. Rosa Parks resisted and said no. As a result, Parks was arrested and was actually fined by the city for violating the law. This was a non-violent event that led to violent actions by other people who felt attacked by the situation. The NAACP then became involved in this incident. The NAACP went against the city and supported Rosa Parks because they thought it was uncivil to do so to Parks because of the color of her skin. A nonviolent boycott then formed in union with the NAACP to support Rosa Parks in her arrest due to her color. This boycott forever changed this community and communities all around the United States of America. Many black people stopped riding the public transit around the town to make a stand and kind of prove a point. As a result, not black people, but white people showed their responses to this boycott with violence. Eventually, Martin Luther King Jr.'s house was bombed as a result because he wanted the boycott to continue until there was a huge change. Eventually, the Supreme Court did not ratify this Montgomery bus law. This was a success even though it didn't get ratified for the black community struggling during this time because they were able to move closer towards ending segregation and kind of got themselves heard. Nonviolent protests for the black community worked better because they stayed hopeful. Making the government listen. If they would have responded similarly like the white community by destroying things, they would not have been heard. The formation of the Black Panthers, which is my next point, formed in 1966 in California. The group called Black Panthers thought that the Black Panthers thought that the Martin Luther King Jr., who was also involved with Rosa Parks, had failed in his civil rights movement as he chose not to do violence while making his points. The Black Panthers thought that the violence would make a difference. Huey Percy Newton and Bobby Seale founded the Black Panthers. They're the founders of the group. So they stood for African Americans, but were willing to help any other minority group that needed help. So they were there for others, but they didn't really do it in the right way. The Black Panthers used violence to manipulate people and get what they felt was success and a voice. The FBI eventually got involved and destroyed the BBP, aka the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party was actually a failure more than anything. They wanted to change the lives of many black people by bringing them equality and equal job opportunities and equal life. Instead, due to the violence used, they got a bad name for themselves, and hypocrites began to associate all black people with the Black Panther Party due to the violence that they used. The March on Washington, which is my next one, my third one, occurred in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. in 1963. The purpose of the March on Washington was to scream out, declare, and ask for complete equality, support for major civil rights and legislations, which was waiting to be ratified by Congress for African Americans. The March on Washington brought together roughly 250,000 interracial people to proclaim that they wanted to make a change and see a difference regarding these ideals. A. Philip Randolph, who had been working on this for a long time, as well as his group that is known as the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, you may hear it referred to as, joined together to form this march. This was a peaceful protest without violence. Their voices were much more easily heard as they swayed away from violence, which made people and society take them more seriously. Eventually, JFK endorsed this march as they did not use violence, made it easier for them to be heard. Overall, in my concluding statement, I believe that nonviolent protests are much more effective. Out of these events, the two that did not use violence were much more effective. Their voices were more so heard. They kind of got more of a result, unlike the Black Panthers. I believe this was the result as they were taken more seriously, and it was much easier for their voices to be heard.